It's good to see everyone here on this rather dull day for this Living Well seminar on ageing with HIV. I wouldn't go so far as to say I'm an expert on the issue, but it is my personal experience and perspective. If year on year it's a recurring struggle to convince yourself you're still 21, join the club. I often feel much older than 55 thanks to HIV and all the problems it has brought me. Yet we have survived, but surviving is not enough. We need to live well, and that means living with dignity. I'm going to start with what sounds like a strange question, just a quick one. See if anyone knows what the origins of the term scapegoat is. No? The answer is it's an ancient biblical Jewish practice, a village, town or city investing all the sins and failings of their society into a goat, as in not human, i.e. dehumanized, essentially abdicating responsibility, and casting that goat out into the hills to fend for itself for their sins. To me, social care, which now tends to be narrowly defined, is one aspect of what society's contract should be with itself, an exercise in human reality, social compassion, and community cooperation, as anyone can suddenly find themselves in a place they did not expect. I'm not going to break into song and sing sure as if I could turn back time, but consider it done. Our individual stories of HIV and living with it will all be different. Battles, relationship changes, individual needs, and the realities will change over time, as will the care that we need. Yet, there is a common thread running through all. This is my experience. While it is purely a coincidence of circumstance, today, in this time slot even, 17 years ago, that's 2002, I was diagnosed with aggressive HIV in London. My consultant knew I was getting psychotherapy, dealing with my intended having been found decapitated and dismembered a few months before, and wondered how I would cope. I wondered how I would cope. Then there was that gift of hindsight, realisation, that grief-filled drunk night out was how I contracted it, if I could turn back time. I'm usually pretty well clued up on HIV issues, but at my consultation yesterday, I learned that even being undetectable, you can still get a nasty surprise. So that blemish that I've had for the last 3 months that looked like a Kaposi sarcoma lesion now has to come off, and my lungs need to be checked. Back in 2002, with a confirmatory test done, on meds pretty quickly, my first combo had me hospitalised within 10 days. I was going downhill rapidly, not responding to meds, and was retired 10 months later, not expected to see much beyond 2006. Having been disinherited at the age of 22 because I was gay, I had a pretty good idea how HIV would be reacted to in most of the family. Indeed, coming up for 2 years ago, when my stepdad died, I discovered the obituary hadn't been totally edited out of the family. I was partially prepared for it. I had heard rumours that I allegedly had died some time before. I was never going to get cared by family. The reality of stigma is still very present in society, but it is only in connected thinking and working that the reality of people not dying like flies anymore, but living, can facilitate people living well, with dignity, and a sense of being part of society, rather than stigmatised. Even those that cannot work now can still have plenty to give to society. Change usually happens slowly, though the reality of AIDS did accelerate some more liberal thinking. But when people coalesce and assert who they are and demand their human rights, and HIV Scotland has led the way in this in the UK on a shared cause, change can happen, and I'm proud of the association. Remember, AIDS used to be called by another name. The gay community was scapegoated by the term GRIDS, or gay-related immune deficiency syndrome. Sometimes I think we have to remind ourselves and others what HIV stands for. To many, it is still a condition that only certain types get, whatever the judgment, when general ignorance means not getting anyone, having intimate relationships is at risk. It is my personal conviction that the gravestone AIDS health campaign of the 80s did far more in creating stigma than is often accepted. Like many of same similar age to me, condoms were for family planning, not gay sex. How quickly we had to adapt. Society did not. Sadly, this difficult period in human reality was compounded in the UK by a political attitude of Mrs. Thatcher that there was no such thing as society. We saw Section 28, the poll tax riots in Scotland, and Scotland, for whom sovereignty has always been vested in the people, not the Crown, really started to assert Scotland still believes in society. The Department of Health and Social Security had become the Department of Works and Pensions, with its change of emphasis. In my time as trustee of George House Trust in Manchester, the reality of the Home Office targeting African HIV-positive asylum seekers was hard to ignore, including one friend whose daughter was born in the UK, but had, after her husband's death in Rwanda, under tribal law, become his brother's responsibility, and was raped and contracted HIV. This has always troubled me, because it hits on the issue of defining society and how care is defined as well. Yet many of the councils in Greater Manchester had dedicated HIV social workers. Some had handyman support services for the disabled, the elderly, etc., where for a modest annual registration, if you covered material costs, that job that you can't do in your home would be done with very modest charges. Part of a social contract of enabling people to stay in their homes. There were even projects that had supported housing for HIV-positive people that saw the support being covered by social services, not plundering benefits that you needed. However, personally I found this sort of support intrusive, as the provider was trying to tailor me to fit what they wanted to deliver, rather than the other way round. They wanted to focus on my admin. I was quite capable of doing that myself. What has happened to society, and how does it impact on us who are living with HIV and ageing? I wish I had the answers. I'm just me. But when coming back home to Scotland, expecting to die, social care was not high on my list. I wanted to be free of cities, I've had enough of them, but needed healthcare support. Postcode lottery really reared its head, and having previously lived in Edinburgh, access to health services dictated. I wanted to live on the Isle of Skye, near my dad, two of my sisters and various nephews. The experience of assisting my stepmother at my stepmom's funeral in 2003, where delays meant I ran out of medications. Dad, well, he marched me down to the GP practice, declaring I was up for my mum's funeral and had run out of antiretrovirals and needed to see a doctor. The GP was flummoxed. She had never met a person with HIV. What do I do? She listened, and next morning, Raidmore in Inverness delivered emergency supplies to Dad's house. Much as I would love to have spent the last 13 years in Portree, healthcare is pretty basic. Social care does not seem to be much better. Window dressing paper, tick box social care is council bureaucracy, not social care. It's selective prioritising. Councils are underfunded to fulfil all the obligations delegated to them. Some need educating. As recently as 2 years ago, a council employee in East Lothian told me I had no right to live, merely exist. Quite shocking, really. I have quite complex comorbidities, along with HIV/AIDS. Not most of the time obvious. I sometimes struggle with being in public, let alone functioning at home. HIV has resulted in me becoming quite reclusive. I have developed neurological malfunctions. Sometimes I can't hold a cup without uncontrollable shakes, which means sometimes I can't prepare food. I have HIV-reactive arthritis and medication-induced brittle bone. I shattered my leg as a result of an accident. Yet just recently, given I'm not allowed to climb on ladders or chairs, the council, knowing that I'm disabled and on benefits, when I inquired for help in replacing a dead fluorescent kitchen tube, it was do it yourself or accept a £75 call-out charge for a £7 tube. I don't know who the tube is. The only support I do get is my community alarm, for which I pay. I do sometimes fall in the house. People have become account numbers, not members of society. I've struggled a lot with a lot of things in life, but my experience of social care as I need is shockingly non-existent. Benefit agencies for cost-cutting have long abandoned social care considerations. To challenge the DWP can mean your benefits suspended, leaving you in dire circumstances, even potential homelessness. Where is the societal compassion for the vulnerable in that? Will the Scottish Social Security Agency prove to be more of the same? I suspect so. Prove me wrong. The disconnect between benefit providers and social care providers is even more complicated. ATOS can advise that higher rates should be paid, but DWP decline, which means you can't access the care you need. I did note that in the recent party conference, the First Minister stated on re-election, care delivery will be free at the point of need. We will see. Social care is way much more than almost local council epileptic fits of delivery, or supplied by underfunded care charities. It is about a social contract that this country brought into, cradle to the grave care for all, because we used to believe in society. It means politicians doing what is right rather than easy, or politically convenient, or partisan agendas. It means people in position not thinking in terms of entitlement, but instead remembering, there but for the grace of God go I. I did not choose HIV. I don't know anyone that did. Society needs to reconnect, reverse the disengaged compartmentalism, take a holistic view, and bring the threads of the cloth of society together and weave a new social plaid. When I was a young man, in one part of my career, I worked at a special needs residential school on Royal Deeside. Many of the kids would not have known their parents, even if they visited, abandoned, not part of their life or society. In my spare time, I would volunteer at an old people's home. And I have to confess, I was often shocked at the sense of deep loneliness many elderly in care experienced. It was heartbreaking. It has undoubtedly influenced my concerns for those aging with HIV. We must never lose the vision on beating HIV. Neither should society cast us to the hills to fend for ourselves. HIV/AIDS is a leveller. Society will be judged by what it does. For me, living well with dignity also means having the right to die with dignity, which I hope the Scottish Parliament will finally approve.
James, thank you for that incredibly powerful account of your experiences of stigma and your experiences of engaging with a raft of social services. And I think your account of a social care system that is impersonal and indifferent, and the challenge that you have issued to politicians, to the Scottish Government and indeed to the UK Government, but particularly from my perspective as an MSP, to politicians in the Scottish Parliament and to the Scottish Government, to prove you wrong in terms of your expectations of where social security Scotland may ultimately lead and what kind of experience it will deliver for service users. That is one I take very seriously, and I know the Scottish Government takes very seriously as well. I think your opening remark of surviving is not enough, to me, encapsulates what this project is about, and it's a message that I think has to register loud and clear in the ears and minds of politicians in Holyrood and in local government and with civil servants, and it is one I will make sure is taken to the floor of the Scottish Parliament in due course when the work that we've been undertaking in this seminar series reaches a stage where it can be presented there. Also, your remarks about the 1987 Tombstone campaign resonates. It is something I've actually discussed several times with colleagues recently. I was discussing it with a member of my staff in Parliament who is only 21 or 22 years old, and I showed her on YouTube the video, and she was utterly shocked from a different era, but the reality is that that still colours the perceptions and understanding of far too many people, including many people who should know better. And again, that is a point I will make sure is reiterated, and that we replace that as the abiding image of HIV with the message of the day, which is you equals you. There was a huge amount in that. I'm not going to ask you to answer any questions that you would not want to, but I don't know if anyone would like to maybe comment, if anyone has any reflections that they would like to offer just now. Again, there will be an opportunity during the workshops later on. Can I just ask you once again to give a hand for James?